Hi, I'm John Trishler from Specialty Performance Parts, and today we're going to show you how to remove and replace your OEM fog lights from your 2024 F-150 Raptor with the modular bumper. This is very similar to the removal and replacement of your OEM fog lights on the non-modular bumper as well, but there's a few changes. We do have a video on the previous model, but we wanted to show you the updates mostly on the removal portion, just so everyone's clear on how to do this. So let's go ahead and get started on removing the factory fog housing, and we'll show you how to do your swap out for your upgraded fog lights. All right, and so we took our wheel off here, so we just had plenty of room in here to show you clearly in the video. You don't have to take the wheel and tire off to get to this at all. We just did this again just so that you could see exactly what we're doing very clearly. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and remove our factory fog lights and housings. And to do that, we're gonna remove a few things to get to this bolt here. So it's kind of hidden behind this inner liner. So first, there's a little plastic tab. We're gonna just go ahead and unscrew that. As you can see, it just turns. All right, so that's just a little retainer type clip. It just unscrews. So we'll pull that out. All right, and now we've got a 7mm bolt here and here. So we're gonna remove these two so we can pull this loose. And now we're gonna go ahead and remove this one here just to pull this liner out of here a little bit more and get ourselves a little bit more clearance. And now we should have enough room here to be able to pull this back a little bit more and kind of get that out of the way. And now you should be able to see you can get to our little bolt right here. All right, so now we're gonna remove 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 bolts to remove the housing and the light. And you'll notice that this little clip here that kind of holds this panel in place, it might be in your way of a wrench here. You can use a swivel like this, or you can use a 10mm wrench like this, and you can get into the side real easy. All right, so there's our screw. And then we've got our last one right here. And then that's our final one. And if you notice, I'm holding on to this because that's the last one that really holds everything into place. So now you can take the cover off and lay that down. And now you can take your housing off as well. Just like this. And our cord's kind of short here in the way, so it might be easier than if we just unplug our connectors first. These little red clips on here, these are retaining clips. So you want to slide that back. That's what allows you to push the release down. And sometimes on these connectors, it's actually easier to release them if you push in and then pull back. It's like they kind of get caught sometimes. So if you just keep pulling on them and you're pushing down on the clip and it's not coming out, push in as hard as you can and then pull back, and then they slide off. All right, and this harness is also attached to this case right here. So if we put a little pry tool underneath it here, we can lift up on this. That's gonna pull this harness loose from there. And then we can pull our other connector off like this and kind of pull this aside. The last thing we have here is our sensor connector. And hopefully you can see this from the back side. We've got our other cable loose so we can turn this around. This one, it has a little retainer clip right there. You need to be really careful because working with any of these connectors, you don't want to break anything. So we need to pull up on this little white retainer clip, just like this, very carefully. Did you see that move up? And then we can squeeze the clip and pull out the connector. So I'm going to show you that one more time with it off of there. So when this is down like this, we're going to very carefully try to pry this up so it's flush here at the top. Then you can squeeze the connector to release it. Here's the little lock tabs, and then you can pull that out. So now we've got our housing loose, we've got all our connectors off, and now we can take our housing and we can replace our OEM fogs with our upgrades. And once we're done, we'll be able to plug everything back in reverse with our adapters to our factory fog connections and then our sensor connector. And then we're going to bolt this back in just the way it came. All right, and since this is a general installation video and it really covers 3 different brand lights that can replace those factory fog lights, I want to cover the adapters and how to plug them into each one of these because they use different connectors. So we've got a Diode Dynamics SSC2 light here on the top, we've got a Baja Designs S2 light in the middle, and then the rigid SRM, which is an upgrade over what looks like the factory ones that you're taking out, but it's much, much higher power. So we're going to show you each of the factory adapters for each of these lights real quick, just to make it easy. So no matter which kit you're installing, it's going to make a little bit of sense. So let's start with the rigid in the SRM model. Here are the factory lights, and you can see they look similar. Obviously, this is your upgrade. The factory connector looks like this. Okay, so this is what we need to plug back into our factory connector right here. So one end of the adapter is going to match that. The other one is going to match the DT connector on the rigid light. So you're going to plug the adapter into the light here. It's going to click. And then you're going to take the other end and you're going to plug it in to your factory connection. Once you do that, your light's going to work just fine. One thing that you do need to make sure of though is when your light housing is back in here like this, because you've got your inner light on this connector, which would be here, and your outer light on this connector, you want to make sure that you plug them back into the same locations. Otherwise, when you turn one switch on or another, you're going to get opposite sides turning on, or you're going to turn on both your lights with each switch because they're tied together to the other side. So just pay attention to where you're plugging each one in. Your inner light, your inner connector. Your outer light, your outer connector. With this one, we've got the Baja Designs S2 light. We've got the factory fog connector adapter for those, which is a weather pack connector. So we'd slide that in here. And then we'd have the other end that we'd slide into our factory fog connector here. And then that's going to plug in our Baja Designs upgrades. On the Diode Dynamics, it's a little bit different because the Diode Dynamics have backlights. So they have 3 wires. So here's our factory fog adapter for the Diode Dynamics. So on the back side, there's not a cord coming out of them. So we're going to plug our factory adapter into the Diode Dynamics light just like this. And then out of the back side, we're going to have our factory fog connector, and it's going to match our factory fog connector here, just like so. We're going to plug that in. That's going to give us our main power to our main light off of our switches. Then we're going to have our backlight port. And our backlight port is for our backlights, and we're going to use our backlight Y harness, and we're going to have 2 of these, so one on each side, and I'm going to show you what that backlight Y harness looks like. Okay, so here's our backlight Y harness. And there's a branch here for each side. So this is going to be one side, this is going to be the other, driver's side, passenger side, and so on. So let's just start with the one side. This should be our passenger side here. This is where our switches are. And so this is where the shortest part of our Y is. The longest part is going to go under our frame here and across to the other side. So we've got 2 ports. We're going to plug in our backlight ports right here to one adapter, and then the other one would plug into the other adapter on the other light. So when it's done, each light is going to look just like this, with your OEM fog adapter going to your light, your backlight port going to your Y harness, and then the other end of our Y harness here is going to go up by our switch wires, and we'll be able to plug those into an additional auxiliary switch, or we can plug them into our parking marker adapter to have those backlights trigger on and off automatically with the parking and marker lights and headlights. All right, now we're going to install our OEM upgrades in our factory fog housings. And to do that, we're going to remove the 6 screws on each light to remove these clips. And we can use a screwdriver here and a bit. This is a T10 bit. And so we're just going to take these out. And set them carefully aside. Just like so. Take our last little clip out. And now the lights, once we pull these out, should lift right out really easily, just like that. All right, so we can set those aside. All right, now we've got a clear space. With our kit, we've got our T-brackets. This is our most important part. We slide our T-brackets out, and we've also got our plastic spacers. All right, so you'll notice we're gonna line our T-brackets up just like so. Okay. And now you see they line up with the holes there. The reason that this is a little longer here is because certain models, like the Bronco, this area is a little lower. This will work with both the Bronco Raptor, the F-150 Raptor, and the new F-150 Raptor with the modular bumper, which is what we're working on right now. So now we're going to carefully take our spacers. We're going to put them on our screws, and then we're going to put those through each of these holes. The reason that we need our spacers is because if you'll notice that these clips that we're replacing, they were a lot thicker, okay? If you don't have the spacers on there, then the threads of the screw go down lower and you could potentially crack your plastic housing. These spacers do 2 things. 1, they make sure that you don't put the screw in too far, but 2, they also retain that screw with pressure so that it doesn't back its way out. So we'll put 1 in and we will start that screw. When you tighten these down, you don't have to crank it down hard. You just have to snug it down. It doesn't have to be hard down. Those nylon washers are going to keep that tight, and you're gonna have all 6 of them in there, so it's gonna be nice and tight. So we'll get each one of these started with a spacer. Okay, so we've got those all started. Go ahead and tighten those down a little bit. I'm going to take this one loose just a little bit to give it some more play for when we put these other ones down. And again, like I said, don't go real tight, just go snug. That's all you need to do. All right, so now we've got these all on here and we've got our T-bracket on there, which is our most important part. Now, go ahead and pay attention to this because this is something we talk about all the time. You have 3 points of contact, just like the factory lights that we took out. They're secured on the sides and they're secured vertically and horizontally with both the sides and this 3rd position here with the screw. That keeps them from bouncing around. Our kit uses that 3-point mounting as well, so that if you just used them on the sides here, you can have that tip and vibration with the road and so on and so forth. By having the bottom mount as well, that's going to keep these brackets from being able to tip and crack your housing, and it's going to give you more support for your light, which is what's important. So this is our most important part. We've got that done. Now that's the same for all three lights. So we'll take one light at a time and we'll show you how to install it. This is the rigid SRM light, which looks just like the stock one. With this kit, you can replace just one pair, so one on each side, and you can keep one of the OEM ones in there that are SAE if you wanted to. That gives you the ability to have the same overall look, but just replace one light. All right, so with our rigid lights, we're gonna have our replacement brackets here. So you're not gonna use the rigid hardware, you're gonna use this bracket. We're gonna have our replacement hardware here. So here's our rigid light. We're gonna put that hardware on. We're going to just do one side here. We're gonna slide this bolt through, just like so. We're gonna put our washer on the other side. You don't need a washer on this side, it's a rounded head. We're gonna start our nut just like this. All right, so now we're gonna go ahead and put the bracket, tighten the bracket down. So we've got our bolt through, we've got our washer on this side, our nut on this side. We put our Allen key in this side. We can take our 10mm wrench here on this side, and we're gonna be able to tighten that down. Okay, now get that nice and snug. And what you wanna do is get that as level as you can. Just kind of get that level, make sure it's straightforward. But again, this isn't like it's rocket science, you just want to get it straight. Doesn't have to be perfect. All right, so now that that's in there, we'll go ahead and tighten it the rest of the way. So now we'll be able to put our bolt from the back side here and through here and tighten it down the rest of the way. All right, so rigid hardware, this hardware you are gonna use. You're just not gonna use their bracket because it's too short and it doesn't allow you to tip it this way. So now we can take our bolt from the back side here, we'll be able to slide that in that bracket. And then we're gonna slide it in from the front side here and then tighten it down on this bracket. So we can take our cord in either side here, make sure our light is right side up. So we've got our print right side up here. We can slide that in just like so, and then we can start the bolt from the back side. Just hold our light here from the back here, hold our bolt underneath. We can put our washer on, our lock nut, and we can tighten that down there. And you obviously aren't going to tighten it all the way yet. First, you're going to position the light so that it is centered. And we can slide it from side to side, and we can slide it up and down. And so once we get it centered, and just trying to look here with you as we go, once we get it centered, we got the same amount of daylight all the way around, which I think that's pretty close. Now that we've got that straight in there, it should be centered just like this one. We know it's straightforward. We can really carefully tighten this down the rest of the way while watching that we don't move that out of our position that we have it so it's straight. Once that's done, then we'll be ready to move on. Our light's going to be installed. If you've got two rigid lights, obviously you're going to repeat that on the other side here with the other rigid light. And then you're going to have your two upgrades. So if you get one, it's going to look like this. You've got your stock one, you've got your upgrade. If you get two replacements, you're going to replace both sides. So that's how you install the rigid lights. Now we're going to show you the Baja Designs. So now on the Baja Designs S2 light, this is the hardware that comes with the Baja Designs light. So you've got two screws here for the side of your bracket, these two star washers that go in between, and you've got your hardware here for the bottom. So what we're gonna do for the sake of this video, this is a lock nut, and this is gonna take a lot of torque. So you're gonna, when you put the washer on here, you're gonna hold it with a wrench like this in the back side, and then you're gonna take a socket and you're gonna crank that down. Since that takes obviously a lot more torque and everything, and we're switching to the next light to show you, I'm just gonna, for the sake of this video, replace this lock nut with a standard spin-on nut. But we're gonna go ahead and put the bracket on. I'm gonna show you the orientation for that bracket, just like so. You'll see this is the stock Baja bracket. So the way you're gonna do it is you're gonna have this bracket, just like this. The star washers go underneath, and we're not gonna do that right now because I don't wanna mar up this light, but they're gonna go underneath of here. So normally these star washers go under here. They take out the tension here, and they lock that bracket in. It's not gonna move on you when those are in there. But again, for this installation video, we're not gonna do that just because we don't wanna mar up this light for this demonstration. All right, right now we're just gonna skip that little step here for this, and we're gonna crank these Allen screws in. All right, so we've got our bracket here. We put a screw in one side, kept the other side loose here just until we can get our bolt through that goes into the back side there. And once we get that in, like this, we can go ahead and put the other screw in. And again, we skip the washer step here. Those usually go in between here. But we did that just because we don't want to mar this up just for this demonstration. We'll get it almost tight, but we're not all the way tight. And we want to straighten our light up here. We want to get it straight. You can use a square, if you know what a square is, L-shaped ruler. All right, so you could square that up if you wanted to that way. You can eyeball it. If you leave it just loose enough, you can move it a little bit. But so we got that there. We're gonna eyeball it for this video. And that looks pretty square, so we're gonna go ahead and tighten that up the rest of the way. Just like so. And now we'll be able to take this from the front side, just like we did our other light. We're gonna feed our wire through. We can feed it through the top or the bottom. This is the bottom, so we'll feed it through there, I believe. Yep, because this is the top of the light. Let's feed our wire through the bottom here. We'll line this up here to our bracket. And we can get our bolt through. And then we can put our washer on, and then our nut. And again, you're gonna use the nylon lock nut. We're just doing this for demonstration. Now, you can see here is our light in the front. If we keep it loose enough that we can still move it, we can adjust it just the way we want it if we want to go up or down. But that's gonna sit right in there, nice and clean, just like this. And just like our other light, we're gonna look around here and we're gonna get that centered up so that it looks even on all sides. Now there is one other thing that we can do. If we wanna put the snap-on covers on these, which are kind of popular, we need to bring this forward just a little bit. So one additional option, you should see these in the kit with your Baja lights, these spacers right here. These spacers can go in between these two brackets to space that out. So I'm gonna just back this off real quick, just so you can see. So if you want the light sitting back a little further and you don't care about ever putting on snap-on covers, then you don't need to use these. If you do, then you can put these spacers in just like so. That's gonna bring that forward just a little bit. Slide that on. Again, now if we go to the front side, just like so, then we should be able to, again, get that straight in there, and we should be able to get our snap on covers on there. All right, so now we've got our light in there. And so you can see we can snap our cover on just like that. And that's what those spacers are for. They bring that light forward just enough that gives you the clearance for being able to put those snap-on covers on. So again, you don't have to use them. You can use them. We'll show it to you here from the other side. All right, so there you can see we've got our snap-on cover on there. And then that clears now that we've used our spacer here on the back side to bring that forward just a little bit. Now we're gonna install the Diode Dynamics SSC2 light. And so, you know, with your hardware bag from those lights, you're gonna get these little brackets. Again, just like the rigid ones, they're not long enough. They're not gonna get to where they need to install in there. So you're not gonna use these. This little pigtail, you're not gonna use that because remember you've got the adapters. So what we need to do is use our little U bracket there. We're gonna reuse their long screw and nut here, and then their hardware for the back side of that. So we're gonna install that just like so. You can see the hole here on the side. This is the mounting point for the bracket. So we're gonna slide their hardware right through. Comes out to the other side, and that's where we're gonna put the lock nut. Okay, so we're gonna start that on here. And this one's also gonna be a 10mm. We're gonna have our Allen key on this side, and we've got our 10mm wrench right here. Theirs is a pretty tight fit, so we've gotta use the Allen key really to get that tightened down with a regular wrench. Okay, so we get it snug enough that we can move it, okay? Diode's a little different than the other lights because if you noticed on the rigid, like this, and the Baja Designs, they've got a cord coming off the light. So we can always put the adapters on before or after for our fog adapters. But for the diode, because the bracket is gonna swing up over top of that connector, we need to put our adapter on first. So this is our Diode Dynamics backlight port OEM fog adapter. So we slide that in, and it should click in place just like that. And then we can swivel that bracket up just like so. As you see, our other bolts are gonna go in from the back side here to attach it, but we'll be able to go ahead and tighten these, the bolt and nut down the rest of the way. You can pretty much eyeball what is straight with this, but again, you can use a straight edge if you really want to get that fine tune in on each light before you install them into the housings. We'll go ahead and get that tight, and kind of snug that down. And the other thing you can use to kind of guide you too is if you look at the connector and the edge of this bracket, you can kind of see the straight lines there. That'll help you kind of get it straight as well. You kind of use that as your guide. And you're going to get it really tight for yours, you know, and it's still even being tight, you can really kind of push on it in the front with some torque if you need to adjust it. But now this is the bottom of the light. There's a little D there. I'm going to turn this back over. So this is the bottom of the housing. If we insert this in like so, then our wires are going to come out the top just like this. You can see you can bend it if you want to and bring it out the bottom, but you know, it's still going to clear just fine in there behind your housings. All right, from here, again, we're going to have this on the back side. Then we're going to put our washer on, our lock washer, and then our nut. So trying to hold this at an angle where you guys can see this on the camera. So it's a little awkward for me, but that's all right as long as you can kind of see what I'm doing. All right, so we're going to line that up here to this hole, just like so. And normally this is going to be on your lap, so you're not going to be looking at this, but again, I want you to see this in the camera. That lines up just like so. And get your washer on there. That lines up just like so. We can put our washer on, then our lock washer, and then our nut. And get that started down. just like that. And then from the front side, we can turn that over and we can kind of see what we're doing here as far as lining that up. With these U-brackets that we have, you can actually pivot and slide them side to side and up and down. So that gives you the ability to kind of space that out and get that centered just right in that housing. And then you'll tighten that down, like I said, on the back side as you go. Once you get it completely straight and even on all sides, you can continue to tighten this down the rest of the way. And once you've got that in place, then you're ready to go to reinstall it back in the vehicle. So now we've shown you all three lights that you can install in here and the different ways. All three are very similar. They all three have the same procedure here for these T-brackets, which is the main piece for all three lights. And then on your rigid and the diode dynamics, they're both going to use these U-brackets as well in place of their factory brackets. On the Baja designs, they're going to use their original brackets with the T-brackets. And to recap, rigid and Baja designs both have cords, and our factory fog adapters are going to plug into those and then into your factory fog housings. The diode dynamics do not have a cord coming out of the light, so the OEM fog adapter plugs directly in to the light, just like so, and then we've got our backlight port. So now I'm going to show you one other thing really quick. This install video is on a 2024 F-150 Raptor with the modular bumper, the new one. The install procedure is basically the same for this Gen 3 Raptor with the modular bumper and the Gen 3 Raptor with the standard bumper, with the exception of a few things on taking the light housings out. We've got another video showing you how to install these kits in the standard bumper. We wanted to do a little higher quality video with this one. The other one's a little darker, didn't have the lighting that we have here, and we took the wheel off to make it a little easier to see. But one thing we haven't really shown you is the housings for the Bronco. And these OEM fog kits are good for all Raptor models, including the Bronco Raptor. So I'm going to slide this forward just a little bit, and I'm going to bring over a housing for a Bronco. So this is the Bronco, and I'm going to turn that upside down because this is actually this is the bottom, or actually we'll turn this one around. How about that? So this is from the back side. Here's the bottom of your screen. This is the back side of a Bronco housing, and here is the bottom for the bottom of your screen. As you can see, these are basically the same layout. And so all these little tabs that you take off, everything is exactly the same. So the installation is the same. We pointed out about these brackets being a little longer here so they can accommodate the Bronco or the F-150 Raptor. And I'm going to show you real quick what I was talking about with that. This is the bracket on the Bronco, and without taking that light completely out, you can kind of see how this lines up, and that's just going to sit down just a little further down with the Bronco version than it does with this one. And that just gives you that extra length for that Bronco Raptor. So as Ford changes through these different models, you're going to be able to have these kits work with all of your OEM fog replacements. So again, just really quick, on the Bronco Raptor, the OEM fog replacement is exactly the same as we just covered here. The only difference is taking the screws out, slightly different locations, but basically the same procedure. All right, so now that we know how to install our factory fog connectors with our factory fog housing, we're gonna be able to put our housing back in place the way we took it out, put the cover back on, and we're gonna put our 6 screws back in and reinstall those just in reverse of the way we took it out. All right, thanks again for watching. Don't forget to rate, comment, and subscribe, and visit us at spvparts.com for all your lighting and accessories for your F-150 Raptor, Bronco, and other vehicles. We'd be happy to help you, and we'll see you next time.